Hi, everybody. It's Friday again. Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm Moohead. Have been for decades. It's a burden, believe me. This is going to be a quiet show today because there's a lot in the works, but nothing that much that's really happened for the Cleveland Browns. But I have a mouthful to say about the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there's always something to talk about in Cleveland sports. If you want to jump in and be a panelist on the program, it's very, very simple. Just go over to the YouTube channel and right there in the show description, there's a link, and guaranteed, it will get you in. It always works. I've never known it not to work. You can call in on the phone, you can do whatever, or you can just sit back and watch. Things quiet down this time of the season, and with the Cleveland Browns season long gone and in the rearview mirror, you can take a look at some of the things that made this team better this year than in previous years. And what's interesting is here's what I would hope the Browns have learned. One, you have to have a qualified backup quarterback to have a chance in the NFL because your first string quarterback is going to miss time. And if the drop off is so steep and it doesn't give you a chance to win, it just everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Everybody had the biggest plans for DTR, but DTR is not the answer, folks. He's underarmed, undersized. He's not that fast. And that's why he was a fifth round, sixth round draft pick? That's the facts of it. The next thing the Browns have to recognize is that hiring capable coordinators made all the difference in the world for this team while we were focused on Kevin Stefanski and his rather odd play calling for the last couple of years. The fact of the matter was, I was shrieking about Joe Woods and getting rid of Joe Woods. And with one swift move, we made a vast improvement to the team. Now, I could make the argument that it ended up on a sour note. That's for certain. And I will always wonder whether the players stopped playing in that game because Jim Schwartz made it publicly known he wanted to be a head coach someplace else besides Cleveland. So there's that. But hiring Jim Schwartz and getting the production and the aggressiveness from the defense is what made this team successful from the get-go. With an injured quarterback, with an old quarterback, with an XFL quarterback, they still made the playoffs. And the special teams, we screamed about Prefer for years, how the special teams just underachieved. Can't say that about this year. Now, I don't know that Dustin Hopkins is ever going to have as good a season as he had this year. I don't know if that's really possible. It wasn't possible for the guy who ended up being the selection for the Pro Bowl. He only kicked 85%, but he's a Raven. So, automatically, boing, he's into the game. Dustin Hopkins had a magnificent season, but it wasn't just him. You guys forget what was punting before Bojorquez came. Bojorquez's big leg, with the exception after he got hurt, really was huge to play the field position game for the Cleveland Browns. And with the exception of one long kickoff return, our special teams didn't give up dick in the way of major returns. They did not fumble the ball into the other team's hands. With the removal of DPJ, we actually did more than just fair catch punts. And that makes a big difference. It gets more of your roster involved. You can't be afraid of change because the one thing that's certain in the NFL is that things continue to change. And now we're at an intersection of sorts because of the offensive coordinator situation. And I'm reading what Cleveland fans are saying. What's so good about this guy? What's so good about that guy? If you're judging how a guy's team did as an offensive coordinator by their record and by the idiot talking heads on television, then you're going to be missing the point forever. An offensive coordinator cannot make his team win if his team has no offensive line or if his team has no defense. Case in point, the Dallas Cowboys. Number one on the list is Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore is getting a lot of bad rap, in my estimation. First the Cowboys, and then last year with the Chargers. Well, you can't overcome a guy like Staley as a head coach who puts his team in the worst possible position that he could. The Chargers quarterbacks were sacked 43 times this past year. Herbert, when he was able to stay on his feet, 20 touchdowns and 7 picks. And that's all you guys are doing. Oh, CJ Stroud, 23-7. Hall of Fame. It's all horse shit. An offensive coordinator can only do so much. And with the Chargers, it wasn't like Kellen was going to do shit there. That team was on a downward slide after the first year that Staley took over the team. Guy was way too high on himself and just erratic in the way he approached things. And you're not going to see anybody rushing toward him as a head coach. Prior to that, 20, 21, and 22, people want to take the Cowboys' frustration and heap it on Moore's plate. They averaged 27.7 points a game last year. You stupid fuckers. If you don't win with 27.7 points per game, there's something terribly wrong. And what's wrong was the defense. Just take a look at what happened over the course of the season of the Dallas Cowboys. And you have to take into account a mind-numbingly bad head coach who keeps getting the green light from a incredibly mind-numbing stupid owner who's old and shouldn't be making decisions anymore. Jerry Jones, give me a break. More like Jenny Jones. When you see multiple teams fall apart at the critical moment, it's more than just Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was, people questioned him coming into the league. What was he, Mississippi State? Is that where he came from? And people said, well, yeah, he's athletic and all, but I don't know. Does he really have the arm strength? Does he, the accuracy? So when he ends up throwing inopportune interceptions, and year after year, they find a way to lose, it's mind-numbing. But we know about mind-numbing owners here in Cleveland. Oh, they're willing to spend money, but somehow they fuck it up. Kellen Moore is a guy who did enough with the Dallas Cowboys to have winning records, and it's not his fault if the defense falls apart. It wasn't his fault in San Diego this last year if his team had an offensive line. I mean, people say, well, he had a lot of talent at Austin Eckler. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry. Suck my dick. Okay? They couldn't run the football. Hence, the quarterbacks were sacked 43 times. Here's what's good about Kellen Moore. A, he's a play caller. B, he designs plays. C, he works in the same similar system with a zone blocking scheme that the Browns already utilize. And he's had downfield throwing quarterbacks like Herbert and Dak Prescott. And so there are things that he could bring to the table. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to become Fidel Castro and just run the show by himself. Kevin Stefanski isn't just going to say, "Here you go, Bucky." That's not going to, it doesn't work that way. It's a meeting of the minds. We're not going to change our running scheme, folks, nor should we. We have a bunch of offensive linemen, some a little long in the tooth, but we've got younger guys who are learning the system. We got to stick with the run scheme that works, because without running the football, you saw what happened to Joe Flacco. You can blame old Joe all you want for throwing all the picks he threw. Couldn't run the football. The running backs were slow to hit the hole. They'd run east-west. As we found out since then, Kareem Hunt was late to team meetings and wasn't very motivated. We're playing with an offensive lineman from the University of Cincinnati and his buddy who was the running back at the University of Cincinnati. These are not high draft picks, people. You have to bring somebody in who's familiar with what you're doing, and it has to be a meeting of the minds. You cannot bring in somebody who's going to upend the system. It's one thing on defense to say, sure as hell not going to play that fucking zone that Joe Woods was playing because nobody could explain to me what they were supposed to do. Never understood the Joe Woods concept when you had island defenders. But be that as it may, week after week, we were in the zone and we got torn to shreds. So we bring in a new guy and the defense is a lot better. Now, Jim Schwartz cannot be so dictatorial in his own mind and so non-malleable, so rigid in his thinking, because everything changes in the NFL and people see what you're doing. So you can't change the entire offensive scheme, but you got to hire somebody who has worked within a similar scheme and knows the components. So that's that. If you want to succeed, you let the team continue to run the offensive scheme that it's running, but you need to polish up some plays. You need to add some new wrinkles. That's why you bring in a guy like Kellen Moore, because he devises plays as well as calls plays. And the fact of the matter is that Kevin Stefanski, if he wants to remain a long tenured head coach in the NFL, can't do everything. Just doesn't work that way. So, yes, Kellen Moore is my top guy so far. I don't want a guy who's never been an offensive coordinator like Jared Johnson. I mean, God bless him. I'm sure he's got a great relationship with C.J. Stroud. And I'm sure that Deshaun Watson knows of him too. But no. Got to have somebody with experience, just like you did on defense, just like with the special teams. You got to have somebody who brings energy to a system. So the same thing would be held true for a running backs coach. A guy who was turning 65, Stump Mitchell. God bless him. Did a nice job in Cleveland, had some good running backs when they were still physically sound, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Hunt lost a step partly because of bumps and bruises, and part stories because he didn't work as hard as he could have. And Chubb, of course, you know what's happened to him. Second major reconstruction of the same knee since college. So you're going to have to get depth there. And I know, how do you do it without draft picks? You got to do something through free agency, because you need to do something as far as wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball, because your wide receivers need to spread the field a little bit more to give Deshaun Watson the opportunities that he buys while he's kind of moving in the pocket. With that said, Deshaun Watson was on a podcast saying he wants T. Higgins on the team. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. But the fact that he's enticing a former Clemson guy of his to come on board, you can't say that he's not trying to recruit for the Cleveland Browns. Bottom line is, the Bengals are going to have a problem if he decides to go cross state. We can use that player because we need somebody who has the ability to spread that field in a different way. And somebody who might have some chemistry emotionally with the quarterback who's going to be playing next year. So that's what I can tell you about the Cleveland Browns right now. You're going to learn a lot by who they hire as the OC, because in my opinion, that was the weakness of the team. And it's a weakness because one guy's trying to do too much and he needs assistance. Not because I want to hand the whole thing over to a new guy. So that everybody knows, that's where I stand. If you ask the Cleveland Browns, how is Nick Chubb doing? They're saying he's moving right along. I don't think you're going to see Nick Chubb next year until 2/3 of the season is over, if then. This is a monumental task he's trying to accomplish, and it's a bad situation. And the fact that he was injured on a play that Minkah Fitzpatrick intentionally did will forever want me to cripple and want my team to cripple every Pittsburgh Steeler and every Baltimore Raven that they run across every game they play them. I want to see Steelers and Ravens carried off the fucking field. I'm really sick and tired of their guys doing what they do. And it was so unnecessary. Just a blatant attack on the guy's knee. Just pathetic. You're not going to see him again until 2/3 of the way through the season. It's just the way physiology goes. And yes, I know he's a hard worker, but to come back from 2 reconstructions, nobody's done it before. So I don't expect him to be the first, okay? You need to have a running game. So whatever he's doing right now, that's great. We'll see. As far as the second guessing that goes on amongst fans, it was a mistake not playing our starters in that final game against the Bengals. That is what makes fans stupid. Because, those same fans would say, if you started all the players, oh, God, it figures an injury. Why were they doing that? They always take the other side, right? The Browns did the right thing. They didn't show up in Houston. Plain and simple. There are reasons for that I don't know. They had no giddy up. They had no energy. The whole thing seemed flat and listless. Not sure why that would be, Jim Schwartz. You? I don't know. It was the right idea to sit the players. I can't believe that people say, I can't believe they're so stupid that they're playing a quarterback who's hurt. Yet you have no problem in a meaningless game when you're already into the playoffs for resting your players. It's like, you You have no problem with the bye week where they're resting. How come you didn't come out of the bye week playing like shit? I ask stupid fans rational questions, and you get no answers because they're little shit fans. That's why. They're not serious. During the season, I knew that hell was going to break loose because our bye week was so early. Very hard to overcome that in the league because we're playing catch up for the rest of the season. But I believe bye weeks are very, very useful. You use the bye week to heal your players up. No different than what happened going into the Texans game. How did the Browns play coming out of their bye week? Oh, I'm sure they did pretty well, thank you. So I wouldn't be blaming that. That's just another excuse. Fans hate it when players come up with excuses or when coaches or whatever come up with excuses. We got to be better. Well, we hate that shit, don't we? But what about when the fans are full of shit, huh? Then what? I really don't, for me to talk about a draft now, nah, we have very little to work with. We'll see what the Browns organization can figure out. Somebody trying to get in here. It's Tony the Calf. Hi, Tony the Calf.
I have some breaking news that might not be good ears to Cleveland fans.
What's that?
The comeback player of the year has been announced.
The comeback player of the year is Baker Mayfield, and it should be.
The PW, the Pro Football Writers, have announced Damar Hamlin is the fucking comeback player
for playing 5 games.
Yeah, for playing 1 snap.
That's wrong.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Baker I would, Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I would have put Mayfield first, and I would have put Flacco second. And Hamlin should be thankful that he's alive, but should not be in that conversation.
He's on a roster, for God's
Miracle of the year, maybe, but no. This kind of thing is bullshit.
Oh yeah. Damar Hamlin, he played 5 games, and the only notable play he made was the handoff in the division.
Yeah, exactly, which made no sense whatsoever.
Comeback player of the year.
Yeah, is this true what Amsterdam's saying, or is he just being Amsterdam? That Baker Mayfield is the most improved?
I didn't see that. But...
I haven't seen it either. I don't believe anything he says. I mean, I got nothing against Baker Mayfield, but if you can't see that the Tampa Bay Bucks are not a big-time ascending team, then you're blind as well. The limitations on that team start with the head coach. And Todd Bowles doesn't know anything about offense whatsoever. And it seems to me that the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm going into Casey Kasem, has gone away. And now he's with another team.
Yeah, he's the Panthers' new coach.
That's right. So for the 85th time in 5 years, Baker's going to be playing in a new system. So it goes if you're Baker Mayfield. This is not an ascending situation. Todd Bowles can't help you. He's a defensive coach. And you're going to see more 9-3 games. And Baker is not going to be able to escape pass rush. And he's going to have his good moments and he's going to have his bad moments. That's not an ascending franchise. They want to keep the head coach. They lost their OC. Now good luck, because Baker, did very well. He threw for 4,000 yards in that scheme. Better hope that somebody held on to something about it. But Evans ain't getting younger, and they're going to have to put more people and more weapons on the field. And they also have to make sure that they protect Baker Mayfield because with a leaky offensive line, he has no escapability whatsoever. And that's where a lot of mistakes are made by that quarterback.
So, do you think Mumbles ends up on the sidelines this year? Do you think he's
He did in Atlanta.
CBS analyst?
Right off on the sidelines. He ain't in the game. It's like I keep saying, the NFL is an agent of change. And for all the let's blow Bill Belichick because he's, the greatest coach in the world, the fact of the matter is that when a coach's time is done, it's done. We've seen it over and over. We saw it with Don Shula. We saw it with Tom Landry. We see it. We saw it with Mike Ditka. The people who have fairly prolonged careers or downright prolonged careers as head coaches, you can only cross so many decades. And it's not just the skill set and the speed of the game, but it's how you work with players. Don Shula was a little bitch. If Don Shula were to coach today's players, they wouldn't play for him. They'd spit on the ground and lay down, and they would say, "Fuck you." That's what they would say. It is a hard job. Being a head coach is a hard job. And, Bill Belichick's, don't you know who don't you know who I am? Oh, I'm Bill Belichick. Wait, let me take my hood off. Nobody gives a shit. It was in the past. And it was done with one quarterback. One. Outside of that one player, Bill Belichick didn't win shit. Not shit. Most overrated head coach in the history of the NFL.
Okay.
Good defensive mind. Good defensive mind. But he got lucky. So, yeah. Do I think he's, what they're going to get is what Washington got with Vince Lombardi. They're going to, it's going to be a name hire, and people are going to look at him. A whole new fan base is going to look at Bill and say, what the fuck is this idiot? Can't understand a word he's saying. He never explains what he's doing and why, and he thinks he's God. It ain't going to go over. So I think that he is likely to be passed over. That's what I think. Because his recent record speaks for itself. I'm sorry.
I think the only options left are the Commanders and the who's the other team looking for a coach?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now that Harbaugh's in the Chargers,
and that's the joke in and of itself. I mean, it's could things get worse than Staley? And the answer is, you got 2 or 3 years from Harbaugh. After that, it's going to be the same thing that happened in San Francisco. They're going to realize that he's psychologically unsound. He's not a well guy. It worked well with college students because that weird bipolar, bizarre nature, he had that position of authority, and nobody was going to shut him down. But the 49ers players, to a man, said, we start out every season, no matter how successful we were the year before. And he'd start in with different shit, picking on people. It's like, we got sick of it, man. Fuck that. We're not going to play for that. And he's escaping his criminal activity at the University of Michigan. They all do the same thing. They get the hell out of Dodge before the consequences hit.
Yep.
And if that's what the Chargers want, and you know what the funny thing is? They're being hailed for doing it. We bring in Deshaun Watson, and the lynch squad of the KKK comes in, right? And that's all we hear. But hiring a guy who literally cheated and who already won in the NFL but had to be gotten rid of because players wouldn't play for him. you're going to see the same thing. At first, the players will adhere to the bizarre nature of the man because, look, I'm not saying he can't coach, and he's proven he can do it at the college level and at the pro level.
Mm-hmm.
But the real question is where is he going to strand you? And where is he going to lead you? Down a dark alley and mug you? I mean, there isn't much longevity with a guy who's a little shaky. So we'll see what happens there. The Ravens, well, Mark Andrews is ready for the AFC title game. But, it's funny because everybody makes out Mark Andrews because he's a guy who has made some big catches for them as some kind of great thing. And he is obviously a favorite player of Lamar Jackson's. But it's funny, he's been injured. And how did it hurt the Ravens, his injury?
Not at all.
And why?
Good question.
Well, I know why. And anybody who is a Ravens fan knows why. Isaiah Likely.
Yeah,
the
that's
tight
true.
end he was their leading receiver in yardage and receptions after Andrews left. The scheme is to throw to tight ends.
Oh.
That's what they do. Here comes Bronk. Hi there, you big moose head.
I missed the show so far, so I don't know what you've talked about.
Well, I'm not going to go all over it.
Yeah,
now.
I know. I mean, I don't want to double back on saying something that's already been covered.
We'll just say DeMar Hamlin got picked as the comeback player of the year over Baker.
DeMar Hamlin comeback player of the year award.
Yeah. Over Baker, Joe Flacco, or anybody that was actually good.
It's all propaganda. You know that, Tony.
Well, it is.
Oh,
it's PR. It is. It's like, we told you that it's not a dangerous game. Look, he came back and was the comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
It's just blind. Yes,
it's all the NFL more than any sports league in the world wraps itself around the American flag so tightly that it can barely breathe. I mean, you had to expect that result.
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, but the stuff that they sell the fan base, and the fan base just seems to eat it up. I don't understand.
Well, I mean, if we've gone on about the games coming up, I think there's the Ravens are going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't see any way they're not going to be. But the Detroit 49ers game, you don't know which Lions team and which 49ers team is going to show up. I mean, that's got to be the worst possible game to bet on. I have no clue what's going to happen in that game. So, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I am trying to look something up here.
What are you trying to look up?
All right. A number of people mentioned to me the artwork that is up.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to say that's better than standard Moohead graphics.
Oh, well, that's because I had nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
And I want to give the shout out to the guy who passed this along to me. He made this.
Wow.
His name is Brown's Candy Skull, and he's from the greater Dayton, Ohio area. He's been a viewer of the program for 5 to 6 years, and he has been playing with a lot of AI artwork, artificial intelligence, for those who are old and decrepit.
Yeah, thanks for moose-splaining that. We should have a new phrase, moose-splaining, mansplaining.
Well, I would not be Mr. Technology. I mean, I try to keep up as best I can for an old guy. But, he does a lot of this AI artwork, and it is. I had an opportunity to have a nice conversation with him online, and he's a good fella and a good fan of the Browns, and has, like so many of the people who I don't see, as far as the chat room or don't see, on camera, there's many people out there who have been watching the program for a long period of time.
Long time, yeah.
And I appreciate those folks. And I say that all the time, but I get an opportunity this time to really be able to.
Well, you should come on the program. We
Well,
could
I don't know if I'd want him to like come on the.
come on the program. Yeah,
I mean, that's really disturbing. That would be really disturbing.
That'd be a sticky situation, let me tell you.
That would be Mukaki.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
Moose-splaining and Mukaki. I've come up with 2 new words.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, well, I've got this turned around now, and it's all right. It's all good. My screen, it's like, what did I do? What did I do?
I want to make a confession. I want to admit that I've not watched the Cavaliers game for about, I don't know, since maybe November. Maybe that's why they're winning.
They're playing well without all the injuries and with Tristan Thompson being a dumbass.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be, well, I haven't seen the games, but they're doing better without Garland and Mobley than they did with them. So,
well, I mean, there are some things that might be a little bit misleading about that.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And
explain it to me, or explain it.
Before I get into the Cavs, which I'm going to very, very quickly, I'm just looking to see if there's anything else. Yeah, the fact that Raheem Morris was hired over Bill Belichick, I had a good hard laugh about that. The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
And I haven't spoken much about them because I wanted to see how things go. I don't like to get too overly excited when they got off to a bad start, and I don't want to get too overly dramatically happy when they have an 8-game winning streak. They're back again playing in Milwaukee for the second time in 3 days, and no, they're not going to win, and it's going to be difficult under that set of circumstances. The last game we played against them 2 days ago, it was one of those games where the Cavaliers got off to a bad start, which hasn't been happening lately. It would be enough to make a lot of the questioning fans once again ask, well, it's going to be, so they're a meltdown team just like they did against the Knicks. And, but what I can tell you is they hung in against the Bucks after whipping them by 40 points in Cleveland the time before that we played them, because they didn't have Giannis. They had Giannis on the floor this time, and they had everybody healthy on the floor, which we can't say. And
they had the first game with the new coach fucking pipe.
Well, Doc Rivers wasn't there. Yeah. Joe Prunty was running the show, but the players were happy that a change was made. I do want to point out that the hiring of Adrian Griffin came from a source inside the Milwaukee Bucks. In other words, the reason they hired Adrian Griffin was for one reason. You know what the reason is?
What's the reason?
Giannis. Giannis went to ownership and said, this is the guy I want you to hire. You want to know something else? Yeah. After several weeks, he realized it was a mistake. So 2 things will happen out of this, in my estimation, in my guesswork. The one thing is, with Doc Rivers being hired, you look at Doc Rivers' record, and the last 9 times he's played he's coached a playoff deciding game, he's 0-9. He's not a clutch coach, but he is a coach who will relate to players probably a whole lot better than a young first-time coach like Griffin was. So they got that going. He's got that going for him. The other thing is the Bucks are not an ascending team either. Their window has closed quickly. And if they think they're going to win with statue Brooke Lopez and with sometimes Chris Middleton, and just because they got a slightly old Damian Lillard, if they think that, and with Giannis as well, that that's going to make them the NBA champions, guess again. And Giannis ain't going to be around. The window's going to shut.
Oh, got a question for you. Maybe you covered this.
By the way, I mean, Giannis is what, 27, 28 years old?
Yeah, he ain't young
in his
anymore.
prime now. He got to win now, and the future is not in Milwaukee. Go ahead, Bronk.
So what's the story with Tristan Thompson? What did he do? What happened? Just explain it to me.
The same way you end up with a Kardashian. He was taking illicit performance-enhancing drugs that were helping increase lean muscle mass, and you kids can't do it. And I don't know who narked on him. I don't know how the league found out. I don't know if he was regularly being tested or whatever, but it's an irresponsible thing to do. He's 32 years old. And, I don't understand. Nobody goes on forever. And it's an unfortunate thing. And it's something that you never live down. Huh?
Must have been random test, because all of us, Embiid had 70 and Towns had 62 the other night, and all of a sudden those two got drug tested the next day.
Oh yeah. I mean, but Tristan was giving a few minutes a night and was doing well.
Yeah, he looked okay. The bits that I saw him play. I mean, what my memory's a bit shot because I'm post-COVID. I'm having sort of the bit of the headache, brain fog, dizziness shit.
Right.
But, wasn't Tristan in the same draft as Kyrie? Were they 1 and 4?
He was. Yep.
So how many years ago was that now?
Oh my
That's
goodness.
about 10 years ago now. Wow.
2011, I'm thinking.
It was a while.
Thank you, old fan 32. Jim Brown reference. Brown. I appreciate it. We don't promote this thing, and there are people say you should really promote this program.
No, you shouldn't, because the right people that will find this show will find it, and then they'll stay, or they'll be here for a little while and then they'll go away. And
if you don't know that I'm a Cleveland fan, I've been doing this for 21 years. The fact of the matter is, if you don't know by now, you're not gonna know. And if you see my ugly face popping up on your suggested YouTube channels year after year after year, if you haven't bothered to tune in, or if you have and it's not your cup of tea, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not people are not required to like the program. They can if they want to.
It's a choice. One out of so many now.
It's a free country. You can watch the show or you can't.
Yeah. So Tristan made a monumental bad judgment is what it amounts to.
To be drug tested, right, and get caught, does that mean that you are sort of been doping continuously, or did you just
the implication is
yeah? I mean, what does that actually entail? Do they think that he was been cheating for ages, or
Yeah, I think that there's every reason to believe that he had been getting away with something. Yeah, I mean, he's cut like there's no tomorrow, and the ladies like his body. What can I tell you? I don't know what reasons people have for doing things, but it turns out to be detrimental to himself, detrimental to the team. So
that my internet's going down.
Huh?
Are you still here? Because I had a big glitch.
No,
I'm here. It's Bronk.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
All right,
that'd be my problem.
So as far as the Cavaliers are concerned, what do the Cavaliers need to do and to be able to take the next step? And I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but the Cavaliers are a team that are kind of on the ledge too, because Donovan Mitchell's future with the team is not very guaranteed. That's the first thing.
I heard you explained that the other day. I watched the archive. You explained that quite thoroughly.
And that's just not a great situation. And now what we have, and it was really apparent in this last game against the Bucks, you cannot play a savvy team who is playing hard defense without a second team ball handler, without a guy who is able to make his presence felt by distributing. We have one on the bench.
Yeah, isn't that meant to be
Bickerstaff
Porter?
refuses to play him.
Isn't that meant to be Porter?
Well,
See the guy?
well, it was originally meant to be the guy who's never going to even play for the Cavaliers, the guy who's been out all year, who's just had ankle surgery. What's his name?
Oh,
I can't. I mean, I can't even tell you his name because he hasn't never hit the floor.
right.
But well, he was supposed to be the backup point, and Porter is way better than he is anyway. And
Right.
the bottom line is, and I'll tell
What,
you what.
Bonnie Bates? No, he's
No.
The other.
This is a guy.
No, I know who you mean, Moo, and I
Yeah.
can't.
Somebody in the
Damn,
chat room, tell me the guy who.
There's a Google.
My brain's dead.
Yeah, it's right on the tip of my tongue, and I can't. I don't want to go searching on the internet in the middle of a program. But what I can tell you is this: the reasoning, if you want to call it that, is this love for Karis LeVert.
Oh
And
God, what's that all about?
Well, what it's all about is that he has long arms and that he
Okay.
plays kind of like what we would call lane defense. He gets into passing lanes because he's got length, so he can get steals that way. He's not a good man-to-man defender. He's not a guy who's going to beat you with his feet. But here's
We talking Ty Jerome?
Ty Jerome. Thank you.
There we go.
Jerome.
Yeah, and you're never gonna, it's like. Now the thing with CPJ is that he doesn't have the 6'7" length, and that is a big thing because you can back him down. He's not the greatest defender, but he has hops. He can get off his feet. What he is he's a below the rim backup point guard, but he has an immense amount of upper body strength. He's very creative scoring the two. He does not have any kind of a consistent three-point shot. And that's another thing because the Cavaliers have been hoisting up all of these three-point shots. And it's great when they're dropping and when they're not, and then when you go to the bench and you pull Donovan Mitchell off the floor because you don't have Darius Garland and you're bringing in Karis LeVert to handle the ball, we don't get into any offensive sets at all. And consistently, and it's obvious what Karis LeVert is. He's a volume shooting guy who can get hot and provide you with points. Now
that was really cold too. I mean, he can be really, really bad. But when he wants to be.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The Cavaliers needed that bench scorer because we didn't have it. We went out in the offseason, we got Max Strus, and we got Georges Niang.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's wonderful to help us get points off the bench. The thing is that Karis LeVert has been forced into more minutes and he's injury prone. His whole career, he's had lower extremity injury problems. And as I spoke in a previous program, his agent is pissed off at the Cavaliers for playing him too many goddamn successive minutes in a row.
Well, he goes to the hoop a lot, does these weird contorted layup shots that bounce off the rim and bounce and never go in, and then he lands awkwardly. So it's no wonder he gets hurt a lot.
That's right. And that's been his career. But let me explain to you what he is. In real terms, he's a 43% field goal shooter and a 34% three-point shooter. And I'm not talking about this year, last year, the year before, everywhere he's ever played. Same statistics year in, year out. Yeah. He is not a good shooter. He is a guy who can get hot, but he's not a consistent performer.
And he doesn't improve, and it doesn't matter what fucking system he's in, what coaching staff he has, he's still going to be the same player. I mean, you stick him on some other team, he ain't going to have any different stats on that team.
With the emergence of Sam Merrill, who nobody saw coming, points off the bench has become less of an issue with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The bigger problem for the Cavaliers are getting defensive rebounds. And, Jared Allen has done a very credible job, but without Mobley on the floor, we lack a lot of physicality in getting teams are getting far too many second opportunities would be the way it would be put in the broadcast world. So the Cavaliers, we put in LeVert, but LeVert's not a rebounder. He's not a shooter, and he's not a ball handler.
What does he do?
Well, what he does is he goes bye-bye, and nobody wants to listen to me because everybody who's, online who talks about the Cavaliers, they have this never-ending love affair with Karis LeVert. And
Why?
the fact of the matter, I don't know.
I don't get it. I don't get that.
We need to move him to get something else. That's what we need to do.
Wow.
It isn't that hard to figure out, because here's what you do have. When you're dealing with a point guard coming off the bench, first of all, the problem that the Cavaliers have when Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are healthy, how do these two men play together? And up to this point, it's kind of difficult because they both want the ball in their hands a lot.
Yep. You said the other day about Bradley Beal and John Wall. I mean,
it's difficult when two players need to have the ball in their hands in order to create. That's the beauty of Sam Merrill. Sam Merrill could run around, run off a pick, you pass the ball to him and he shoot. He knows what he's in the game for. All right.
Right.
And he's Kyle Korver,
Oh God, yeah. What is he still alive?
Yeah, well, he's not in the league anymore. But I mean, the fact is, he had a long career. And if you can shoot the ball like this and have the quick release, and if you're in shape to constantly run around the floor like Max Strus does, and you have Sam Merrill's shot, you just lay bodies on people, give him screens, and he's going to make shots. He's going to score points. And that takes care. And you don't have to play him 28 minutes a game, which is what the Cavaliers are playing Karis LeVert. You don't have to play him that many minutes to get the goodness out of him.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized watching the team is that Sam Merrill will come out and put up double digits. And, he's only 6'4". You don't want to expose him to bigger men for long periods of time. But a lot of benches are thin in the NBA. And he can make a tremendous living, Sam Merrill can, throwing up threes. He's hitting 41% of them. He's been outstanding this year, and we don't need a 34% guy who's a 43% overall shooter just because he has arm length. It's foolishness.
Yeah, the thing about Merrill that's probably so shocking is that we're not used to seeing players improve. I mean, players come into the league, they're poorly coached, at the high school and 1 year of college, and they come in, they never get better. So you're stuck with how they are. So when somebody actually improves their game to such an extent that they become useful, then that's why it's a surprise.
Well, in the case of Sam Merrill, it's a little different. He went to Utah State, but he did a 2-year Mormon. What do they call it when they
missionary position?
A missionary. Yeah, right.
Yeah, missionary position. Yes.
So he was out for 2 years. Doing what he was told to do. So, and not by his mother and father, although that probably had something to do with it. But up there, it told him to do this. But by the time he got into the NBA, I mean, this guy's already 27 years old, folks. This is not a young man by NBA standards, but he just was bench warming and had nowhere to go. But he's the type of player, he plays defense like Kevin Love did. He takes charges. Okay. He's not a guy who has the kind of body strength to muscle people, but what he does is what Kyle Korver did, which he can come in. And if you run a screen-based, top of the key screen kind of thing and get him just momentary open, he'll nail the three. So this opens up opportunities. And I would think that CPJ, and I keep saying this, but JB Bickerstaff is stubborn and, he loves veterans. He doesn't like rookies.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it plays out. We didn't see Imani Bates on the floor. He's only 19 years old. And to tell you the truth, JB wasn't going to put up with him.
Well, yeah, he's
And
probably not ready anyway. But
not ready. And I think everybody knows that. CPJ is ready to play in the NBA and should be getting an opportunity. The only way it's going to happen is if Karis LeVert goes away. Cavaliers need to get something in return for him. What the Cavaliers need is a guy who is, we have Isaac Okoro, who is an undersized 3-and-D guy. All right.
Yeah.
But he's a good defensive player. You've got Dean Wade, who's got a little more height, but can be sometimes streaky as far as his shooting is concerned. You really need that consistent 3/4 guy off the bench to be able to keep strength in your lineup.
Well, we need somebody like Richard Jefferson, then, I guess, or somebody of that ilk.
Yeah.
Where do you find them? There's only like 10 of these guys about in the league anyway. So,
well, it all is based on who will fit a scheme, and I leave that to the people in the Cavaliers organization.
Do we have a scheme? I mean,
well, yeah. Well, I think that there is a plan. I think there is a plan. I think that Bickerstaff is playing people real heavy minutes, and it's going to cost him players.
Yeah.
And I think already we see how brittle Darius Garland has been. So
yeah,
it's going to be an ongoing challenge.
Darius Garland is very much the Denzel Ward of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean,
we already talked about Porter, Ron. Guys just jump in and go, "What about Porter?" You say, "Yes." I'm the first one with you. CPJ should be playing, and you don't have to expose him for long periods of time. But what I've noticed when Porter is in the game is that the ball movement improves, the distribution and the ball moving from side to side. If you want to get the most in a small lineup out of Max Strus, Georges Niang, and guys like Sam Merrill, you got to be able to move that ball around quickly. The problem with Karis LeVert is he holds onto the ball for incessantly long times because he's not a ball handler. He doesn't get us into sets. Now, this problem will partially go away when Darius Garland comes back, but LeVert coming off the bench as a volume shooter doesn't work. We've already got Strus, we've already got Niang, and we need to play the backup point guard so that distribution can happen. And, I understand you don't want to go too small on the floor at one time, but we're talking about, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And then off
quarter.
But if you not only stay close, but if you start banging down threes in that 6 minutes, it makes a whole lot of difference. One other thing I wanted to say, because it pissed me off before I get out of here, because I'm going out to dinner tonight. What pissed me off watching the last Bucks game was that we came out slow, and we, instead of just giving up, we fought back. We got back within 3 points, and we really made a go of it. All right. And then suddenly at the end of the third period, we had gotten back to within like 5 or 6 points, and then it got blown up to 10 or 11 points at the end of the third quarter. But the officials made sure that, nobody talks about this in the press, and it really pisses me off because I've seen the script 150 times. And that is, take a look at the first minutes of the fourth quarter. Do you know that the Cavaliers were over the limit with 8 minutes left in the game? Do you know that the Bucks shot 13 fucking free throws, made 13 fucking free throws in that 5-minute span?
Wow.
There's no way. I mean, with an 11-point lead going in, we were outscoring them. And this, to me, is the most obscene of all. Based on field goals, the Cavaliers were 12 of 20, and the Bucks had only made 4 field goals. But they held their lead. No way to come back. And that's why the Cavaliers will never go anywhere in the postseason, and neither will anyone else except what the NBA decrees, because it is not fair. I wanted to, and I actually had people telling me, well, it's because of Giannis, when you go to the basket like he does, you're going to get to the free throw line. It wasn't Giannis shooting the free throws. It was Lillard and it was Middleton. They were all touch fouls on the perimeter. They were jack up 3-point shots and miss. They call foul, and they go to the free throw line and shoot free throws. 3 of them.
3 of them. Wow.
Yep.
Grim.
And it wasn't Giannis. Giannis went to the free throw line in that period. He made 2 free throws. That was it. It had nothing to do with Giannis. It had nothing to do with going to the basket. It had everything. Because up to that point, and I'd be the first to admit, the Bucks were playing more of a go to the basket game the whole full game, and the Cavaliers were chucking up threes. All right. And that's what Prunty told them to do, just go out, to do your thing, and to take the ball to the hole. The Bucks shot 15 free throws over the whole first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And 13 in the first 5 minutes of the fourth. Give me a fucking break. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, we didn't suddenly start following people. The referee started calling shit.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. And that's that.
Yep.
I got to get out of here because it's dinner time.
Boo.
All right, man. Bronk, thanks for showing up, and I hope your foggy head gets cleared up real soon.
It's just I've been ill since December, I think.
Yeah, you got the long version, huh?
Well, I hope not.
I hope not too.
No.
Well, keep joining us, and we'll sharpen that skull full of mush and make you think like a lawyer.
Here's a dime, and you go call your family and say you're not going to be a lawyer.
There you go. All right, man.
No one knows what we're talking about, do they? They don't remember the paper chase.
Yes, it's all paper chasey and stuff. All right, Bronk. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Monday. We might have an offensive coordinator then for the Browns. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
No.